everybody, welcome to the very first video for Warhammer Workshop. Today what we're going to be doing is taking a very quick time-lapse look at the very recently released Parasite of Mortrex for the new Tyranid Codex. Now, this is a both a disappointment and a joy. First of all, it's disappointment because for the longest time when we were anticipating this codex to come out, everybody I know who is a Tyranid enthusiast were hoping for either one of two things. Either we were looking at the micro and expecting, hoping, dreaming of new troop choice models, mostly replacing the Hormagons and the Termagons because they're kind of old models, and we've seen a few artists come out with their own versions of the models, and a lot of them had very cool, more detailed options available. We were on the macro side kind of also dreaming for a larger model, something like a Dominatrix or a Norn Queen, something maybe a dual kit, something massive, knight-sized. And it's not like Tyranids don't already have a few almost knight-sized models and units. I mean, just our transport is immense. We have the Tyrannofex, the Trigons, beautiful, gorgeous, tall models, but we don't have this one kind of showpiece thing. And these two models, these two units, have been legendary for the Tyranids for so long. It would have been kind of cool to see something like that come out. But instead, we got what used to be a few editions ago a character, the Parasite Mortrex, which had very insanely cool rules, very fun, generating rules that generated more units, which is always interesting, especially for an army like the Tyranids, which are all about spawning. They're all about the weird diseases and poisons and toxins. So it's fun to see the Parasite back. It's also very interesting to see him come back with such a fascinating, beautifully detailed model. The model itself, as you can see in the video, has a lot more details than what we're used to. This is a Tyranid warrior sized model, and yet it has so much more going on. Just look at the wings, just look at the little details in the folds. It's beautiful to paint, it's super fun and easy to get those details out. Whether you're using washes or an airbrush with Zenithal highlighting, it all comes together very beautifully. It's a joy to put together. The assembly is not too complicated, although there are a couple of gaps just under the wings, especially when seen up front, that are a little difficult to notice until you've actually base coated it. If anybody that picks up the model that you can see being painted here, this is my Parasite, and if you pick up the model and give it a quick look, you'll notice those gaps that weren't being repaired properly. The other thing that's interesting as far as the unit is concerned is that the Parasite is no longer a character. This isn't a unique fast attack choice. You can have as many Parasites as you have slots available. Now, granted, there are other better choices. The Trigon has moved to fast attack. You still have Raveners. You no longer have Gargoyles as fast attack choices, but seeing as some of the other choices are available, you may not want to just stock up on these single model pseudo characters. Well, they're still characters, they're just not unique. There are also Synapse, which is great because now that the Tyranids have this synaptic link network that they do, having more of these grounded, especially a fast moving model like this, that can sort of shore up your network and make sure that you can transmit those orders and those synaptic link bonuses further into your army is kind of key to having the Tyranid function properly. Now, when it comes to them in close combat, well, in combat in general, they don't have a shooting attack, so close combat is their bread and butter. They're a character, so they're a little more difficult to target than they would be otherwise. They're under the 9 wound requirements to be targeted independently. They don't count as a monstrous creature, so they've got a little bit of resilience. They'll stay on the table fairly well, and with their movement, it's easy to hide them and have them keep doing their job, resonating that synapse link. However, once they do get into close combat, the only thing that kind of saves them is a -1 to be hit. which is not much. They don't have very high toughness. I don't want to spout out rules and get Games Workshop angry at me, but anybody that's got the Tyranid Codex will notice that they're not independently very tough. Like you don't want to toss them one-on-one against a Space Marine Chapter Master or anything like that. But they do have the cool rule where they can spawn some Rippers. The rule doesn't proc very easily. It's only one attack per fight phase that will have the potential of actually hitting that way. But once it does, it also removes objective secure from any unit that it gets infected with the Rippers. It causes mortal wounds. So when it does proc, it's probably wonderful. The one game I've played with my Parasite so far, no bueno, it didn't work out. He caused maybe 2 or 3 wounds before my friend Sam, who wanted desperately to kill the cute little new model to make me sad, got his hands on it and destroyed it. As far as assembly and painting, like I said, the assembly is fairly standard. It's one of these single sprue or 2 sprue models. Very few pieces, not too many tiny, difficult to get to pieces. There's the mandibles, really the smallest thing you have, and otherwise everything kind of comes together very nicely, which is one of those bonuses that we still get from these 3D designed and sculpted models. One of the things that I might have wanted to do, which my friend Amy, who's also on this channel, did, I believe she kept the 2 little tentacles at the bottom separate until she painted the rest of them all, and I think that was probably the wise move. The only problem is there's the catch-22 that these are the pieces that once assembled will leave gaps that, if you're doing it in sub-assemblies, will be even harder to get rid of. Now, as far as the painting is concerned, I decided, as you've seen so far, to go with some zenithal highlighting with the airbrush. Using a very familiar paint scheme. This is the paint scheme that I've been painting my Tyranids for the last 20 years. So these are colors that I'm comfortable with because, well, obviously I wanted to add this guy to my current army. I'm probably going to add a couple more of them because I want to see what happens when you do run more than one, when you use them, because they're very low points. They're only 4 power levels. I can't remember the exact points, and probably not supposed to talk about on the channel. So running them probably with some gargoyles, which I'm very tempted to finish painting the few units I have that have been airbrushed but still need detailing, just to see how they work, like the whole flock of pigeon attack thing. So there's a lot to look forward to with these guys. Now, once I did the zenithal highlighting, as you can see, like I picked out some of the details for the wings. Then I picked out the color for the carapace. I go for a turquoise, very old hawk turquoise as it used to be called. Now it's pterodon turquoise. And some people will probably give me some negative comments. I still use a linoleum wash to get into the crevices, but it's only as a means of really sort of getting those shadows to pop, and then I go back to these shadows with a homemade wash of the turquoise and some blacks and dilute it to myself so I can get the shadows exactly where I want them. But I like having this kind of starting point where I can see where the natural shadows would be on organic models like that. After that, I just lighten up my turquoise increasingly, give those little streaks that you see on these on the typical Tyranid models to get the carapace, the edges really to stand out. And it's a very quick, very easy way to get a relatively decent high tabletop quality for the model. Now, one thing that's fun is also the Tyranid, the Parasite of Mortrex has the special attack that they use to infect is called a barbed ovipositor, which independently both of these words are already kind of gross and threatening. An ovipositor is something that, unless you have your own, you probably don't want to face too much. If you're a fan of the movie Aliens by James Cameron and the previous Alien from Ridley Scott, you've seen what the facehugger's ovipositor looks like. It's not the prettiest thing, but this one is a barbed ovipositor, so I gotta commend the Games Workshop writing team for coming up with just the absolute most threatening and gross way to name that particular attack. The barbed ovipositor, as far as I can tell, is the end of the tail. The reason I say that is because one of my favorite features of Tyranids is when they have something like toxin sacs, or just the huge bulbous toxin bags that are on the back of Venom Thrope, or the Toxicrene. I love doing those because I can, as you'll see later, I can give them a very bright, very contrastic, sickly yellow-green look to them. Because I'm using somewhat muted tones for the flesh and for the carapace, they're still brightish colors, they're still fairly saturated, but they don't pop out as much on their own. Having that little piece of, at the end of the tail, that little piece of green also marries well with the pools of toxicity that I put on the bases. So at the end, it all looks very beautiful. Now, I don't know that I have many negatives to give about this model so far. I've painted one. It went very easily, very quickly. But like I said, I'm cheating because this is a paint scheme that I'm super familiar with. This is something that's very easy for me to do. Amy, who I mentioned earlier, did something a lot more creative with hers. She used the wings to have these galaxy sort of patterns on them. It looked beautiful. At the end of the day, it was a pleasure to work with. It was fun to play with. An absolute joy. You should pick one up if you play Tyranids, if only because it's a cool model. It's the only thing we've gotten recently. Otherwise, this has been JF Dubois, and thank you for watching.
Materials shown in this video are provided fully or in part by Games Workshop for promotional purposes. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping us a like and subscribing. Thanks for watching.